Have you ever thought that simply keeping your mouth shut could save you from most of life's troubles? More often than not, the hardest blows you've taken were not because of what others did to you, but because of the words that came out of your own mouth. In a moment of excitement, you reveal secrets. In a burst of anger, you destroy valuable relationships. In a careless moment, you missed the opportunity of a lifetime. All of these had one thing in common. You spoke when silence would have been wiser. You opened your heart to the wrong people. Before wondering why you still haven't reached your goals, look at the words you've spoken. The reason you feel stuck in the same cycles isn't what happened to you, it's how you interpret it. Because sometimes your greatest obstacles aren't other people's actions, but the words you can't take back. True power lies in mastering your speech. This video was created to help you learn how to use your words with intention. It's time to stop speaking randomly and start directing your conversations toward your purpose. You don't have to suppress your emotions, but you do have the right to abandon the language that pulls you down and holds you back. Every word you speak either sets you free or makes you the master of your own chain. Now, to give your mind a fresh command for a new beginning, write this sentence in the comments. From today on, I speak only to move forward. This will be the first solid seed you plant into your consciousness. What you keep repeating eventually becomes your reality. As wise thinkers have pointed out, a truly mindful person chooses silence when speaking would only enslave them to their own words. So let's take the first step toward change. First, stop constantly telling the story of what has happened to you. At first, sharing your experiences may feel like a relief. Letting out the emotions you've been holding inside can seem to lighten the load. But when you repeat the same stories over and over again, you unconsciously turn your pain into part of your identity. Repeating negativity deepens the memory in your mind, and over time, it gives you a new label. Your past begins to define the center of who you are. You become someone shaped only by what has already happened. You cling to past suffering and struggle to see the new paths ahead. The point is not to deny your experiences. The real issue is not to reopen your wounds by constantly repeating them. Every time you retell the same story, it digs deeper into your mind and becomes a lasting identity. But your experiences are just that, experiences, not your identity. When you keep voicing them, they eventually become who you are. Some people feel compelled to start or continue a conversation by talking about their problems. At first, it looks like a need to vent, but over time, you notice that they've grown attached to their story. Suffering gives them a sense of uniqueness and privilege. The more they share their pain, the more special they feel. Each time they are listened to, they believe they are validated, and this slowly turns into emotional dependence. Every complaint, every repeated word ties them even tighter to their comfort zone. Because if the problem is always outside, they never have to change what's inside. But what if you did the opposite? What if, instead of repeating your struggles, you started talking about your dreams? What if you focus more on what inspires you and less on what limits you? What if you rewrote your story? How different would your life look today? You don't need to pretend everything is perfect. This is not about denying your feelings. The point is to raise your awareness and realize the narrative you choose to repeat, because the story you repeat becomes your reality. If you constantly focus on what hurts you, you build a mindset of scarcity. It's like watering weeds every single day. But if you start speaking about what makes your life beautiful, what makes you feel alive, what sets your soul on fire, your energy shifts. Your conversations stop being exhausting and start becoming inspiring. You begin to see yourself differently, and everyone around you notices it. We often believe that talking about our problems makes us more real and authentic. But in truth, most of the time, we do it to avoid the responsibility of taking action. Saying you're broke, stressed, or stuck is easier than facing the challenge of real change. But real transformation requires silence, self-reflection, and above all, consistency. And that is often frightening. That's why people tend to fill the emptiness with unnecessary words. However, if you truly want to heal, grow, and move forward, you must stop telling the story and start living it. Ancient wisdom reminds us to look inward and focus only on what we can control. And there is always something under your control, your inner dialogue and the words you choose to speak. As the wise once said, It's not events themselves that disturb us, but our thoughts about those events. If you keep saying, "My life is hard," then your life becomes hard. But even in chaos, if you say, "I am strong," your mind gradually begins to align with that strength. That's why you must start choosing your words more carefully. Not to impress anyone, but because what you say becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes what you live. You may not be able to change your circumstances immediately, but you can change your story. And that alone holds tremendous power. When you focus on what you have, what you can do, and what inspires you, your life begins to open up. New people, new opportunities, new ideas start flowing towards you. Not because luck has changed, but because you've stopped giving so much power to the things that limit you. So stop repeating what has already happened in your life. Start talking about what you want to create, then rise up and live it. Second, your words teach others how to treat you. What you say doesn't just describe who you are. It gives others invisible instructions on how to see you. Every word you speak is a signal. Approach me this way. Treat me like this. If you use insecure language about yourself, people will treat you accordingly. If you constantly complain, say, "I can't," or present yourself as inadequate, others will unconsciously perceive you as a victim. Your words, your posture, your energy quietly whisper who you are. A person who expresses themselves calmly, clearly, and respectfully creates a completely different perception than someone who speaks while swept away by emotional chaos. This is not acting or wearing a mask. It's not suppressing your emotions. It's consciously choosing how to express them. When you lose control in an argument and raise your voice, you're sending the message, "I cannot manage myself under pressure." But if you stay composed, speaking firmly and clearly without shouting, you send a very different message. "I am not a slave to my emotions." And that difference directly shapes the trust and respect people have for you. Someone who can master themselves always inspires confidence. Even in chaos, a person who maintains composure gives a sense of stability to everyone around them. Most of the time, we unconsciously sabotage our own story with our words. If you keep saying, "I always fail," you're not only engraving that belief into your own mind, but also inviting others to see you in the same way. If you don't define how you should be treated, others will fill that gap in their own way. That's why your language must carry clarity and determination. Be clear when you're tired, be clear when you're angry, because the words that teach the most are often spoken in difficult moments. Strength is not about shouting. Influence is not about forcing others to accept you. True strength is being able to speak with consistency and conviction even when emotions run high. Your body language, the look in your eyes, the pauses between your words, all of these carry silent but powerful messages. More often than not, people remember not what you said, but how you said it. This means your conversations should not reflect weakness, but a conscious stance. When people meet you, they should walk away with the impression, this person has self-control. This person knows how to respect themselves and others. Expressing emotions is never a weakness. Real strength lies not in suppressing them, but in sharing them with balance and awareness. This is how genuine connection is built. But remember, throwing your emotions around uncontrollably does not bring you closer to others, it only fills the space with noise. Healthy bonds are born from openness that is measured and mindful. Wise teachings emphasize exactly this. Strengthen your inner control and let your words reflect not just your emotions, but the consistency of your character. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Speak only when necessary, and let your words be both kind and firm." To leave a mark on others, you don't need to raise your voice or surrender to your emotions. Real power is knowing when and how to speak. To take the floor with thought and awareness, without being swept away by the storm of feelings, that's where true influence comes from. And never forget, people treat you the way you treat yourself. If you value yourself, others will too. If you choose your words carefully, others will listen carefully. So, guide your life with your words. Let every sentence carry your strength, because the way you speak doesn't just describe you, it shapes who you are. Third, you don't have to share every step of your healing journey. When you're in the early stages of positive change, it's tempting to talk about it. But remember, the first stages of transformation are delicate. A new intention, not yet deeply rooted, can be shaken easily by outside voices. Even the most well-meaning comment can plant seeds of doubt in your mind. At the start, your desire may be strong, but is not yet resilient enough to withstand external noise. The first steps of change are made on invisible ground. Everything is fragile. That's why it's important not to weaken this new direction with premature exposure. When you begin a transformation, it's tempting to share it. Talking about it may give you a sense of achievement, but true strength is in first solidifying the foundation within and then letting the results speak for themselves. It makes you feel as if you have already accomplished something. But this is a dangerous illusion because you are only at the beginning. True change doesn't grow by talking about it, it strengthens in silence. When a person begins building a new habit or takes a difficult decision, the more they talk about it, the more their brain triggers a reward mechanism. Without achieving anything yet, simply sharing creates a false sense of success. This weakens real action because the mind that has already received its reward loses the drive to struggle. Change does not grow through words, it grows through living it. When you share your process, outside reactions interfere. Some people encourage you, some plant doubts, others project their own fears onto you. Even praise, though it may seem supportive, can comfort you too early and keep you from moving forward. And never forget, not everyone will understand your transformation. Change is a personal battle. Some will minimize your struggle, others will belittle it just to avoid facing their own shortcomings. Real transformation doesn't need an audience, it grows quietly within. That is why wise teachings say, don't explain your philosophy, live it. Epictetus's words are the key here. Don't try to prove you are changing. Don't explain. When the time comes, your results will speak for themselves. Especially in the beginning, protect your process. When it's still fragile, don't expose it to the winds of the crowd. External comments, whether criticism or praise, can pull you away from your true intention. Early validation encourages you to stand still, not to move forward. You may find yourself stuck halfway before you've achieved anything real. So, what should you do? Keep your transformation private. Save your effort for yourself. Be the quiet hero of your own growth. Strengthen your self-discipline not by telling others, but by practicing it within. Because true success is not about polishing your image in the eyes of others, but about strengthening your relationship with yourself. Remember, the more valuable what you are building is, the more carefully you must protect it. Every goal at its beginning is vulnerable to outside influence, and the world is not always waiting to understand or support your change. Strengthen your roots first. Build a fortress within yourself. Make a silent promise each day. Today, I take one more step on my path. Do it without telling anyone. Do it with quiet faith, calmly and firmly, because eventually, success declares itself. Real change grows in silence, and when the time is right, it breaks that silence and becomes visible to everyone. At that point, no words are needed, your presence speaks. The promises you make to yourself shape your life. The most important promises in life are not to others, but to yourself. If you break a promise to someone else, you damage your reputation. But if you break a promise to yourself, you damage your character. And once your character erodes, every part of your life feels the impact. When you make even a small promise to yourself, like waking up early, working daily toward a goal, or communicating more mindfully, that promise becomes a building block in your subconscious. If you keep it, your mind learns, I can trust myself. But if you break it, an invisible crack forms inside. I am someone who doesn't follow through. Most people are more careful about promises made to others out of fear of public shame. But the real danger is breaking promises made in front of your own eyes. When you let yourself down, no one else needs to belittle you, you've already done it inside. If you take your promises to yourself lightly, over time you will take your goals lightly as well. A word, a goal, a dream, they are all connected. This is why the wise teachings remind us that working on inner discipline is the greatest victory. As Epictetus said, mastering your own will is greater than ruling the whole world. You must first learn to govern your own will. Start by keeping small promises, because the one who cannot stay loyal to small promises will never reach great goals. Each morning when you say, "Today I will work toward this goal," see it not as a mere intention, but as a command. A promise to yourself is a secret pact between your mind and your being. No one else sees it, but you do. No one else knows, but you know. And remember, true character is not born from the eyes of others, it is forged in the scales of your own conscience. Every day you stay true to yourself, your confidence grows stronger. You no longer depend on external motivation. A person who trusts their own word never loses their way, even in a storm. Drawing strength from within, they are no longer dependent on applause or criticism. From now on, make small promises and keep them with great seriousness. Give yourself a promise each day, small but solid. Over time, these promises will build an invisible force within your life. And the best part, you don't need to tell anyone. By keeping your word to yourself, you already earn the greatest respect, self-respect, because the deepest transformation does not begin for others to see. It begins so you can be proud of yourself. Rewrite your story. Every word you use is not only a reflection of your current reality, but also a brick in the foundation of your future. Every time you say, "This is just who I am," you draw a new line in your mind. The way you define yourself shapes the mold your mind will follow, and soon that mold begins to govern your life. That is why the words you choose to write your story with matter far more than you realize. Your past, your pain, your failures, they are real, but they do not define who you are. They are only fragments of your journey. If you constantly define yourself through the fractures of your past, then everything you once experienced will continue to rule both your present and your future. But life doesn't have to be a repetition of yesterday. Many people turn what they've gone through into an identity. They say, "That's just who I am," or "I always lose." These words may sound like simple statements, but in reality, they are commands given to the mind. And the mind doesn't question, it simply follows. That is why changing your language can be the first step to changing your life. Ancient wisdom traditions also highlight this. Seneca once said, "We cannot change the wind's direction, but we can adjust our sails." This means that events by themselves are neither good nor bad. It is the meaning we give them that shapes their impact. For one person, failure may seem like the end. For another, it is the beginning of something greater. It all depends on perspective. When you decide to rewrite your story, you redirect your life. Instead of saying, "I can't succeed," you begin saying, "I haven't succeeded yet, but I'm growing." Instead of "I'm unlucky," you affirm, "I create opportunities." These small changes in language lead to profound shifts in mindset over time. Because when your language changes, your beliefs shift. When your beliefs shift, your actions transform. Yes, you may have faced painful experiences in the past, but you don't have to relive them every single day. You can carry them not as a burden on your back, but as lessons in your pocket. The difference lies in how you tell your story. Pay close attention to what you say to yourself every day. Are you constantly emphasizing your flaws, or are you nurturing your potential? Every word you speak is like planting a seed within yourself. And remember, the seed you water is the one that grows. From today on, start rewriting your story. Do not remain trapped in your past. Build a new language, a new perception, a new identity. Who you are is not defined by what you went through, but by what you believe in today. And most importantly, you don't need anyone's approval for this transformation. Be the author of your own story. With each new day, remind yourself, "I am not the result of my past, I am the result of my choices." The discipline of speech is the reflection of inner discipline. Every word you speak does more than send a message outward, it mirrors your inner world. A person who cannot control their words cannot control their emotions, and someone who cannot control their emotions cannot steer their life. Knowing what to say and when to say, it is not just a communication skill, it is a mark of deep inner strength. If chaos lives within you, it will inevitably leak into your words. Anger, fear, resentment, unresolved feelings slip into your sentences, expressed as criticism, sarcasm, or sudden outbursts. But if you have built order within, your words will also carry that order. Even your silence will inspire trust. Some think speaking without a filter is a virtue. I say whatever comes to my mind, they claim, but there is a fine line between honesty and recklessness. Honesty is the conscious expression of truth. Recklessness is simply projecting inner chaos outward. Saying everything you feel immediately is not courage. True courage is expressing what you feel at the right time, in the right way. Discipline means choosing your words carefully, knowing when silence is more powerful, and understanding that even silence has meaning. Impulsive words often bring regret. A phrase spoken in anger can leave a scar for years. A poorly timed sentence can destroy trust, and some words can never be taken back. That is why discipline must exist not only in actions, but also in language. When you are angry, discipline is breathing instead of shouting. When you are hurt, discipline is thinking instead of attacking. When you are criticized, discipline is listening with calmness instead of reacting defensively. The wisdom tradition makes this clear. Mastery over words is mastery over the soul. As Epictetus said, every word that leaves your mouth either elevates you or diminishes you. That is why before you speak, pause and take a breath. Does what you're about to say truly hold value? Does it genuinely contribute? Or is it just the release of a passing impulse? Every word you speak either builds a bridge or erects a wall. It either eases your life or makes it harder. And most importantly, it reinforces who you are within yourself. To discipline your speech is to discipline your life. To bring awareness into your words is to bring awareness into your very being. The one who knows when to speak and when to remain silent lives in harmony not only with others but also with life itself. True strength is not silencing others with words, but mastering yourself through them. Remember, speaking is easy, but silence is the sign of real power. Silence is a powerful tool for managing stress and anxiety. Most of the time, in an effort to overcome these feelings, we try to do more. We talk more, explain more, overfill our minds. Yet what we truly need at times is not more action, but stillness. Silence is not about suppressing emotions, but about truly hearing them. When under stress, your mind begins racing. Thoughts pile up uncontrollably, unfinished tasks, mistakes, worries. In this chaos, finding clarity becomes almost impossible. But pausing, taking a breath, and choosing silence opens up a vital inner space. When you step into silence, the stormy surface of your mind begins to settle. You can observe the inner chaos and distinguish between what truly matters and what is only panic's echo. Silence allows you to step back, to view situations from the outside, and to respond with greater clarity. Many people fear silence because in silence, you are confronted with yourself with suppressed fears, delayed questions, and the weight you carry. Yet true healing begins with this confrontation. Once you learn to observe your emotions without judgment, you are no longer their prisoner. Ancient wisdom traditions saw silence not as an escape, but as a source of strength. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of the practice of inner withdrawal, the idea that no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes, one must have a quiet refuge within. And that refuge exists only in silence, not in conversations, not in arguments, not in restless busyness. This is why when stress rises, when anxiety builds, or when it feels like life is closing in, the solution is not to speak more or do more. It is to pause, to breathe, to choose silence. To see silence not as an empty void, but as a healing space. Because those few moments of stillness can shape the great decisions you make in the future. Silence recenters your mind, calms your spirit, and most importantly, reconnects you with your inner strength. There, in the silence, lies a strength you can find without needing any external approval. Remember, silence is not weakness, but mastery. And the greatest mastery is being able to preserve your inner calm, even in the middle of chaos. Do not share your deepest fears. The deepest fears you encounter in life are like wounds that have not yet healed. And just like an open wound, they can worsen in the wrong hands. Revealing your vulnerabilities to everyone is not always a sign of strength. On the contrary, when shared too soon and with the wrong people, it leaves you even more exposed. Even well-meaning people may not have the maturity to understand, carry, or respond sensitively to your fears. Sometimes what you share will be dismissed. Sometimes, unintentionally, it may be met with reactions that hurt you even more, because no one can feel your emotions as deeply as you do. That's why sharing every feeling everywhere is not freedom. It's a trap you set for yourself. Most of the time, what we truly expect is this: to be understood. We want someone to really hear us, to grasp what we feel. But the truth is, as long as you are not at peace with yourself, seeking validation from others will only make you weaker. Ancient wisdom draws a very clear line here. It reminds us, most of the things we fear consume us long before they actually happen. Before sharing your deepest fears, you must transform them in your own mind. You must recognize them, observe them objectively, and strip them of emotional outbursts. Only then, when you speak of a fear, will it no longer be a cry for help, but an expression of awareness. If a fear still feels like a raw wound within you, you must first share it with yourself. Entrust it to your silence. Write it in a journal, or face it during moments of quiet reflection. Because silence is the greatest healer of deep wounds. The fears you heal privately within yourself become more resilient against the pressures of the outside world. You must learn to protect the most delicate parts within you. You are not obliged to display every feeling. Strength is not in explaining everything, but in knowing how to express the right things at the right time and in the right place. Some matters are sacred and should not be exposed to every eye. True power grows in inner silence. Remember, your wounds are sacred ground. Whom you allow into them determines what kind of future will be built on that soil. If you ever choose to share your fears, do so only after healing has begun, and even then consciously choose with whom, how much, and for what purpose you share. Do not reveal your deepest fears to everyone. First, strengthen them in your own silence, because silence is where healing begins. And once healed, your fears are no longer chains, they are the key to freedom. Gossip is a silent poison. Every person you speak of leaves a mark in your mind. That mark either brings peace like a clear lake, or it muddies your thoughts like a swamp. Talking about others' lives, mistakes, or shortcomings may seem like innocent conversation at first. It may even make you feel included in a group. But gossip is an invisible debt. It first consumes the reputation of the other, then erodes your own character. Every word that carries someone else's privacy from mouth to mouth eventually chips away at your credibility. Because this poison, sweet to the ear, turns bitter when swallowed. It darkens the tongue and then the soul. Gossip is the shortcut to comparing yourself with others. The more you speak of another's downfall, the more you temporarily forget your own shortcomings. And this way, you avoid the true effort of self-discipline and growth. Regardless of external events, you decide what to speak and what to remain silent about. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you cannot correct someone's fault, at least do not verbalize it." Every word you speak is either a tool for repair or an instrument of destruction. There is no in-between. When gossip begins, you feel a small spark of excitement. Notice that feeling and pause. It is the voice of your mind's most primitive mechanism, hungry for acceptance. Then ask yourself, who am I serving by saying this? If the answer is neither you nor the person involved, choose silence. According to ancient wisdom, silence is not suppression, but elimination of the unnecessary. This directs your mental energy toward real goals: virtue, productivity, inner calm. Gossip does not just pass judgment on others, it exposes you to judgment as well. When a community mercilessly dissects one member's faults, it knows its turn will come. This collective insecurity stifles even the most creative ideas. In environments where mutual respect prevails, minds open bravely. But in gossip-tainted communities, hesitation replaces innovation and masks replace authenticity. Should criticism never be made? The line between criticism and gossip lies in intention. Criticism directed at someone is a tool for improvement. Gossip about them in their absence is a power play. Epictetus's advice is clear. If you lack the power to correct, do not complain. If you cannot complain, then improve. If you are not part of the solution, silence is the most virtuous stance. How to apply this? Set a conversation filter. When someone starts speaking about a person, ask yourself, does this information impose a responsibility requiring action? If not, politely change the subject. Use the mirroring technique. Ask the person initiating gossip, did you consider telling X directly? This moves the conversation to the realm of responsibility, often ending the gossip. Reinvest your time. 10 minutes of daily gossip accumulates to 52 hours a year. Imagine using that time to learn a language, read, or walk. Your character balance instantly shifts positive. Focus on others' successes and virtues. Highlighting another's goodness elevates your spirit and builds trust. Gossip may seem to create short-term bonds, but corrodes relationships long-term. Knowing that similar words will be spoken in your absence keeps your mind in constant alertness, a major enemy of peace. True power is not in exposing others' reputations, but in quietly elevating your own. Use language to strengthen your virtue, not amplify weaknesses. Every time you consume another's story, you taint your own. Use language to strengthen your virtue, not amplify weaknesses. Every time you consume another's story, you taint your own. Let your words build bridges that move you forward. And remember the principle of ancient wisdom. Another's words do not define you, but your words reveal you. 10. Being a good listener is true presence. Today, everyone wants to speak, be heard, and understood. True power is not in speaking everywhere, but in knowing when to be silent and listen fully. Listening is not just a social skill, but a mark of deep presence and strong consciousness. Listening without interrupting, judging, or preparing a response is rare. Most pretend to listen, merely waiting for their turn. True listening begins when the ego is silent. The person you listen to feels valued. Through your gaze, posture, and silence, you convey you matter. This creates a much deeper connection than imagined. Ancient teachings echo this understanding. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak." Listening is not to change the other, but to accept them as they are. A good listener makes others feel safe and remove their masks. Continuous talking to explain yourself risks losing others. People remember those who listen. Real charisma emerges not when you speak most, but when you make others feel valued. Speaking without thinking often leads to regret. At some point in life, we've all wished to take back words we've spoken. Once spoken, however, words cannot be undone. They embed themselves in the listener's mind, affect relationships, and sometimes leave long-lasting marks. This is why speaking impulsively is not merely an emotional release, but often the source of deep regret. When you speak in anger, you are usually not thinking. You are swept along by your emotions. The words you utter at that moment often reflect a temporary emotional storm rather than your true thoughts. Sentences spoken in anger can echo through your relationships for a long time. This is why learning to remain silent is not just courtesy, but a form of strength and wisdom. Expressing every emotion immediately is akin to pouring your inner world uncontrollably into the outer world. True mastery lies in consciously choosing your words, even when internal storms rage. This is not about suppressing anger, but managing it with proper timing and manner. Ancient wisdom teaches exactly this. Instead of reacting immediately to an event, create a pause between the event and your response. True power lies not in following the first impulse, but in observing it and selecting an appropriate reply. As Marcus Aurelius said, being master of one's own soul is true victory. How can this be achieved? First, hold the words about to leave your mouth in your mind for a few seconds. Reflect. Will this truly resolve the issue, or is it merely a reflection of emotional release? If it could cause lasting harm to you or the other person, remaining silent is the greatest wisdom. Words spoken without thinking may provide temporary relief, but exact a heavy, long-term toll. In arguments, you may feel the urge to dominate the other person. The true victory is speaking without losing yourself. Acting with awareness, not anger, demonstrates respect both for the other and for yourself. In moments of conflict, words can be as sharp as swords. Mastery is not in swinging the sword at every opportunity, but in keeping it sheathed when needed. Sometimes saying nothing is more effective than thousands of words. As you gain self-control, you stop being a slave to your emotions. Your words become chosen, effective, and valuable. Words are invisible weapons. They either build hearts or break them. Before speaking, consider not only whether your words are justified, but also whether they are constructive. A statement can be both correct and destructive. True wisdom is the art of expressing truth correctly. From today, instill this discipline. Take a deep breath before speaking. Let your emotions settle, then speak. Every word from your mouth is a silent but powerful declaration of who you are. Imagine walking through an ancient forest on the morning after a destructive storm. The scent of pine fills the air, the soil damp and heavy. Before you stand only two types of trees. The first are slender trees admired for their beauty, yet their shallow roots have been torn away by storms. Their trunks now lie on the ground like broken bones. The second type, however, appears forlorn from the outside. Its bark is cracked, branches twisted, and leaves sparse. Yet it stands tall. Its true strength lies not in its showy leaves, but in its deep roots hidden from view. The silent lesson of these trees is clear. Strength grows in depth, not noise. Ancient wisdom translates this image for the human heart. Events are the wind, words are the branches on the surface. Constantly telling your struggles is like exposing tender roots to the sun. Energy scatters, fragility increases. When you absorb challenges silently, your inner soil is nourished, and the fibers of your character thicken. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, as long as our inner core remains strong, no storm can uproot us. External applause passes like the wind. What endures is the essence deepened through quiet discipline. Every word you speak should either build bridges or remain buried like roots in the soil.